Baba Vanga's 2025 month of chaos revealed daily prayer for guidance. In the constant flow of modern life, sometimes an echo from the past calls out, not to spread fear, but to invite us to reflect. Today, we're going to explore one of those echoes, a prophecy from the Bulgarian mystic Baba Vanga about a so-called month of chaos set to take place in this very year, 2025. But more importantly, we're going to search for an answer to a much deeper question. How do we find guidance amidst foretold chaos? And let's be honest, it doesn't take a mystic to feel that the world is on edge. It's a low hum of anxiety that many of us have grown accustomed to. We feel it in our wallets. With an economy that still feels unsettled after years of turbulence, we see it in the headlines, with geopolitical tensions simmering in different corners of the globe, and we witness it in the weather, as reports from organizations like the World Meteorological Organization speak of our changing climate with an increasing and undeniable urgency. It's in this environment that a prophecy like Baba Vanga's finds fertile ground. It's easy to hear a warning of chaos and feel a knot of dread tighten in your stomach. But what if we chose to see this prophecy differently? What if we decided to view this month of chaos not as a fixed destiny we are powerless to avoid, but as a mirror held up to our time, reflecting back our own collective anxieties, our deepest concerns for the world we share, and our quiet fears for the future? That is the heart of our journey today. This is not a countdown to disaster. Instead, this is an exploration of resilience. It's a quiet conversation about how to turn down the volume of the world's external noise and tune into the steady, quiet guidance that resides within each of us. So, let's sit with this for a moment. Let us examine this ancient warning, not with fear, but with a careful and an open heart. The Seer of Strumica, a balanced portrait of a legend. So, before we can truly understand the warning, we must first understand the woman behind it. Who was Baba Vanga? The name itself sounds like something out of folklore, but she was a very real person. Her story begins not in a grand palace, but in the rugged hills of Strumica, in what was then the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. She was born in 1911, a premature baby, and given the name Vangelia Gushterova. Her early life was marked by the simple hardships of a peasant family in a turbulent time. But her life's path was irrevocably altered at the age of 12. The story, as it has been passed down, is dramatic. She was caught in a freak storm, a powerful whirlwind that lifted her into the air and threw her into a field. Her eyes were filled with sand and dust, and despite several operations, her sight could not be saved. Young Vangelia was left completely blind. It was in this profound darkness, she would later claim, that another kind of sight began to open up to her visions of events far beyond her own time and place. Over the decades, her fame grew. People from all walks of life, from poor farmers to politicians and even foreign dignitaries, made the pilgrimage to her small home to seek her counsel. And it is from these visits that the legend we know today was built. The stories of her prophecies are undeniably compelling. Her followers point to a number of unsettlingly accurate predictions. For instance, decades before it happened, she is said to have warned that the Russian city of Kursk would be covered with water, and the whole world will weep for it. At the time, it made no sense. Kursk is a city far from any ocean. Then, in the year 2000, the Russian nuclear submarine named Kursk sank in a tragic accident, and the world did indeed weep. Perhaps most famously in the United States, she spoke of a coming horror for the American brethren, warning that they would be attacked by two steel birds. In the years before 2001, such a phrase would have sounded like nonsense. After the September 11th attacks, those words took on a chilling new weight. She is also credited with foreseeing the death of Princess Diana and even the drawn-out process of Brexit. It's a powerful record, and it's easy to see why so many have come to believe in her gifts. But this is where the story becomes more complicated, and where we must proceed with careful honesty. For all the stories of her accuracy, there is one crucial central fact that must be understood. Baba Vanga never wrote a single word of her prophecies down. She was functionally illiterate and left behind no books, no journals, no verified transcripts. Everything we know of her predictions comes to us second-hand, filtered through the memories and interpretations of the countless people who visited her. What they heard, what they understood, and what they remembered years later, all of it is part of the story we receive today. And when we look at the full picture, we find that the record is not as flawless as it might seem. There are numerous predictions spoken of with the same conviction that simply did not come to pass. She is said to have predicted the outbreak of a Third World War starting in 2010, a conflict that would involve nuclear and chemical weapons. The year came and went peacefully. She foresaw 2016, in which Europe would be almost empty, a desolate wasteland. That, of course, did not happen. For an American audience, perhaps one of her most significant failed prophecies was her statement that the 44th President of the United States would be an African-American man and that he would be the country's last president. While President Barack Obama's election was a historic moment, the line of succession has continued, proving the final part of that prophecy incorrect. So we are left with a complex legacy, a woman who, by many accounts, possessed a profound and sometimes unsettling intuition. She once reportedly said, "Do not fight with fools. They are not so dangerous. The dangerous ones are the clever people who serve the evil ones." It's a statement of simple human wisdom. Yet, the supernatural claims surrounding her are a tapestry woven with both startling hits and undeniable misses. So, how should we look upon these prophecies? Are they astonishingly accurate warnings, random coincidences that our minds have stitched together into a pattern, or are they mirrors, reflecting the fears and hopes of the very people who wrote them down? Deconstructing the Polycrisis, the four elements of chaos. With that balanced picture in mind, let's turn to the prophecy itself. Baba Vanga's warning for 2025 wasn't about a single, isolated event. Her visions were rarely that simple. Instead, she spoke of a convergence, a time when multiple crises would overlap and amplify one another. It's a concept that modern thinkers have a term for, a polycrisis. It's not one storm, but several storms hitting at the same time from different directions. To truly understand what this might mean for us, in a practical sense, let's break down this idea of a polycrisis into four key areas that seem to echo in her cryptic warnings. We'll look at our economy, our global politics, our environment, and perhaps most importantly, the very nature of information itself. 1. The shaking table, economic fragility. Baba Vanga is said to have used a simple, powerful metaphor for this era. She spoke of a time when a great blow will fall and the whole table will shake. It's an image that resonates deeply with the economic landscape of 2025. For years now, the global economy has felt less like a sturdy oak table and more like one with a precarious wobble. Think about the foundations. Global debt, for both nations and individuals, has soared to historic highs. It's like building a taller and taller skyscraper on a foundation that was never meant to hold that much weight. For a long time, this was managed with low interest rates, but now the cost of that debt is rising and we're all feeling the strain. Then there's inflation. We've all seen it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, in our utility bills. It's that persistent, nagging feeling that your money just doesn't go as far as it used to. Central banks around the world, including our own Federal Reserve, have been walking a tightrope, trying to cool down this inflation without tipping the entire economy into a deep recession. It's a delicate balancing act, and in 2025, that tightrope is stretched thinner than ever. Organizations like the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, continue to release forecasts that, while hopeful, are filled with cautious language about headwinds and uncertainty. Their reports speak of slow, fragile growth, highlighting how easily a shock in one part of the world could disrupt the whole system. And we've already seen how fragile that system can be. The pandemic exposed the vulnerabilities in our global supply chains. We learned that the microchip in a car sold in Ohio might depend on a factory in Taiwan, and the medicine in a pharmacy in Florida might rely on ingredients from India. These chains are long, complex, and incredibly efficient when they work. But when one link breaks, whether due to a pandemic, a conflict, or a natural disaster, the entire chain can grind to a halt. In 2025, these supply chains are still recovering, and they remain a point of significant economic vulnerability. Add to this the volatility of energy markets, where the price of oil can be swayed by a political decision halfway around the world, and you begin to see the picture. The global economic table is indeed laden with immense pressure. It doesn't necessarily mean the blow will fall, but it helps us understand why the table itself is shaking. 2. When peace is forgotten, geopolitical tensions. The second element of this polycrisis is one we see on the news every single day: the growing friction between nations. Baba Vanga reportedly spoke of a time when peace is forgotten. This isn't necessarily about a single, all-out world war in the traditional sense, but more of a pervasive, low-grade fever of conflict and mistrust that has spread across the globe. Look at the map. In Eastern Europe, the conflict in Ukraine continues to grind on, a painful human tragedy that has also redrawn the lines of power and alliance across the continent. In the Middle East, old tensions remain, with the constant potential for flashpoints to erupt with little warning. And in the South China Sea and around Taiwan, we see the strategic competition between the United States and China playing out, creating a palpable sense of unease throughout Asia and the Pacific. These aren't just distant problems, they have real-world consequences for all of us, impacting everything from global trade to the security of our allies. But what makes 2025 particularly noteworthy is the convergence of several political timelines. Throughout the year, major elections are scheduled in key allied nations like Germany and Canada, which could shift political landscapes and international policies. Here at home, while not a presidential year, we have important gubernatorial races that will set the tone for the nation's political future. Perhaps most critically, the world is heading towards a significant deadline. The New START Treaty, the last remaining nuclear arms control pact between the United States and Russia, is set to expire in early 2026. The entirety of 2025 will be the crucial window for diplomacy and negotiation to prevent its collapse. The failure to extend or replace this treaty would mean the end of mutual inspections and limitations on strategic nuclear arsenals for the first time in decades. It would introduce a new level of instability and uncertainty into an already tense relationship between the world's two largest nuclear powers. This looming deadline casts a long shadow over the entire year, increasing the stakes of every diplomatic move and every military posture. It's this complex web of simmering conflicts, political shifts, and expiring safeguards that gives weight to the idea of a time when peace feels fragile and easily forgotten. 3. A sun without kindness, the environmental catalyst. The third element is one that Baba Vanga described not in political or economic terms, but through the language of nature. She spoke of a sun that burns but gives no warmth, and of fields turning to ash. These are poetic, almost biblical phrases, but they paint a picture that climate scientists today would recognize all too well. It's the picture of a world under increasing environmental stress. The sun that burns but gives no warmth is a powerful metaphor for a heat wave. It's that oppressive, dangerous heat that doesn't nurture life, but endangers it. And the data confirms this is not just a feeling. Organizations like NOAA, our own National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, have been unequivocal. The trend lines all point in one direction. Our planet is warming, and the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events are increasing. In 2025, this isn't a future problem, it's a present reality. We are seeing it in the prolonged droughts that parch the American West, threatening agriculture and water supplies for millions. It's the fields turning to ash, a literal description of what happens during the massive wildfires that have become a terrifyingly regular feature of our summers. We see it in the hurricanes that are intensifying more rapidly, drawing strength from warmer ocean waters and bringing devastating floods to our coastlines. The concern for a polycrisis is not that these events happen, but that they could happen at the same time as other stresses. Imagine a severe drought crippling a major agricultural region, the breadbasket of a nation, at the same time that the global economy is already fragile. The result would be not just an environmental disaster, but a food security crisis and an economic shock. Imagine a Category 5 hurricane making landfall in a politically volatile region, overwhelming infrastructure and creating a humanitarian crisis that governments are ill-equipped to handle. The environment, in this context, is not just a backdrop. It can be a catalyst. It can be the unpredictable force that takes a series of already difficult problems, economic strain, political tension, and multiplies their impact exponentially. The prophetic imagery of a harsh, unforgiving nature serves as a potent reminder that our human systems are all built upon an environmental foundation, and that foundation is showing signs of undeniable strain. 4. When truth hides, the information crisis. This brings us to the fourth and perhaps most insidious element of the polycrisis, one that Vanga's prophecy captured with haunting precision. She reportedly warned of a time when truth will hide and the lie will march openly. Decades ago, this might have sounded like a vague philosophical statement. In 2025, it sounds like a description of our daily newsfeed. We are living through a profound crisis of information. It's not a lack of information, we are drowning in it. The crisis is in our ability to determine what is real. The rise of social media created echo chambers, where we are often only shown information that confirms what we already believe. This has deepened political divides and made it harder to find common ground, because we are no longer operating from a shared set of facts. Now, with the explosion of artificial intelligence, this problem has entered a new and alarming phase. We hear the term deepfake, AI-generated audio and video that is virtually indistinguishable from reality. Imagine the potential for chaos. A fabricated video of a world leader announcing a military strike, fake audio of a CEO admitting to fraud, causing a market crash. These are no longer the stuff of science fiction, they are real and growing threats. This erosion of trust is the corrosive acid that can dissolve the bonds of society. When we can no longer trust our institutions, our media, or even our own eyes and ears, how can we solve complex problems together? How do you fight a pandemic if a large portion of the population believes the virus is a hoax? How do you de-escalate a political crisis if false narratives are fueling rage and paranoia on all sides? This is what makes the information crisis so dangerous. It acts as a threat multiplier. It takes every other crisis, economic, political, environmental, and makes it harder to solve. It sows confusion when we need clarity. It encourages panic when we need calm, It fuels division when we need cooperation. In a month of chaos, the inability to distinguish fact from fiction could be as dangerous as any physical threat. The open march of the lie, as Vanga put it, could be the very thing that prevents us from finding our way back to the truth. Pinpointing the time, a convergence of signs. So, we have these four powerful undercurrents of potential crisis: economic fragility, geopolitical tension, environmental stress, and a breakdown in shared truth. This naturally leads to a question. If this month of chaos were to happen, when might it be? Now, Baba Vanga, in her characteristically cryptic style, did not give a calendar date. She spoke in metaphors drawn from the rural world she knew. In some of the accounts passed down, she is said to have pointed to a time associated with the second harvest and a hot moon. And this is where some researchers and analysts have tried to connect the dots, turning from prophecy to the tangible calendars of agriculture and astronomy. Let's look at the first clue, the second harvest. For those of us living in American suburbs or cities, it's not a familiar term. But in the agricultural cycles of the Balkans, where Vanga lived her entire life, this has a specific meaning. The first harvest is typically the grain harvest in early to mid-summer. The second harvest refers to the later crops, things like corn, sunflowers, and certain vegetables which are gathered in the late summer and early autumn. This period generally falls around late August and early September. So, some analysts believe this is the window of time she was gesturing toward. The second clue, the hot moon, is even more intriguing. This could be interpreted in a few ways. It might simply be a poetic description of a sultry, late summer moon, or it could be something more specific. The term has led some to look at the celestial calendar for 2025. A supermoon is an astronomical event that occurs when a full moon coincides with its closest approach to Earth in its orbit, making it appear slightly larger and brighter than usual. While we know a supermoon has no direct physical impact on world events, it holds a powerful place in folklore and metaphor as a time of heightened energy and emotion. A notable supermoon in 2025 will occur later in the year, but the idea of a significant celestial marker has captured the imagination of many who study these prophecies. But there is another, more grounded way to look at this timing. That late August to early September window is already known to be a period of elevated risk for reasons that have nothing to do with prophecy. It is, for example, the statistical peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. It's the time of year when ocean waters are at their warmest, providing the maximum fuel for powerful storms to form and intensify. Climatologists and meteorologists watch this period with heightened attention every single year. So, here we see a fascinating, though perhaps coincidental alignment, a prophetic timeline pointing to late summer and a scientific calendar that marks the very same period as a time of peak natural hazard. Now, it is crucial, absolutely crucial, to state that this is an exercise in interpretation. We are connecting disparate pieces of information: folklore, agriculture, astronomy, and climate science. No single piece proves anything. The danger does not come from a supermoon itself, nor from the simple fact that it's hurricane season. The true weight of this warning, if it has any, comes from the idea of convergence. Imagine the scenario we discussed earlier. Imagine an economy that is already shaking. Imagine geopolitical tensions that are already at a high simmer. Imagine a society where trust in information is already broken. Now, into that fragile environment, introduce a powerful external shock during that late summer window. It could be a major hurricane striking a key economic zone, disrupting energy supplies and shipping lanes. It could be a severe drought in a critical agricultural region, causing food prices to spike globally. It could be any number of natural events that, in a normal year, would be tragic and difficult, but manageable. But in a year already strained by a polycrisis, such an event could be the great blow that Vanga's metaphor describes. It could be the final straw that turns manageable stress into cascading failure. The hurricane is not just a weather event, it's an economic event. The drought is not just a climate event, it's a political event, potentially leading to unrest. This is the real substance of the warning. It's not about marking a specific date on your calendar with a red circle of fear. It's about recognizing that certain periods may carry a higher concentration of risk, where the intersection of human-made fragility and the raw power of the natural world is most likely to occur. It's an invitation to look at that late summer, early autumn window of 2025, not as a date with destiny, but as a period demanding our utmost awareness and preparation. The human element, the true turning point. We have spent this time together looking at the great external forces that shape our world. We've examined the intricate web of our economy, the tense chessboard of geopolitics, the undeniable power of our environment, and the disorienting fog of our information age. We can analyze these systems, map their vulnerabilities, and chart their potential trajectories. But after all this analysis, after all the data and the prophecies, we arrive at the most powerful and most unpredictable element of them all, the human element, us. Because a crisis, whatever its form, does not happen in a vacuum. It happens to people, and how people respond, how we respond, is the variable that can change everything. A crisis doesn't so much create a society's character as it reveals it. It acts like a pressure test, showing the true strength or weakness of the bonds that hold us together. We don't have to look far for an example. We all lived through a global stress test just a few years ago with the pandemic. And what did we see? We saw two completely different human stories playing out at the very same time. On one hand, we saw the story of fear, the empty shelves in the supermarkets stripped bare by panic buying, the suspicion between neighbors, the hoarding of essentials. It was a stark picture of a society where the instinct for self-preservation had overwhelmed the spirit of community. But at the exact same time, another story was unfolding. It was the story of neighbors creating phone trees to check on the elderly, of people leaving groceries on the doorsteps of those who were vulnerable, of volunteers sewing masks and community funds springing up overnight to support those who had lost their jobs. It was a powerful demonstration of altruism, cooperation, and the profound human need to help one another in a time of need. Both of these responses are fundamentally human. Both reside within each of us. This is what makes one of Baba Vanga's most subtle metaphors so deeply insightful. In one of her visions of hardship, she described a scene where hands reach for bread but pull away in fear. Let's sit with that image for a moment. Hands reach for bread. This is the most natural impulse in the world. It's the drive for survival, yes, but it's also the gesture of community, of sharing a meal, of taking what is needed and leaving the rest for others. It is the foundation of a functioning society. But then comes the second part, but pull away in fear. The fear is the poison. The fear is not just of the bread running out. It is the fear of the other hand that is also reaching. The fear that if I don't take it all now, someone else will, and I will be left with nothing. It is the precise moment that trust evaporates. It is the collapse of the invisible contract that allows us to live together. That simple, heartbreaking image, a hand pulling back, is a perfect description of the breakdown of social trust. And it is this trust that is the true turning point in any crisis. When it holds, communities perform miracles. When it breaks, even the most well-prepared systems can fall apart. The prophecies and the data can map the terrain of the storm, but they cannot predict the weather within the human heart. That part of the story remains unwritten. And so we arrive at the truest and most important question. It is not what will happen, but rather who will we be? When faced with pressure, which version of ourselves will we become? Will we be the hand that hoards or the hand that shares? Will our first instinct be suspicion or will it be compassion? Will we amplify the noise of fear or will we be a quiet source of calm and strength for those around us? Finding the answer to that is not an academic exercise, it is a spiritual one. It requires us to look inward, to find a source of guidance and strength that doesn't rise and fall with the daily headlines. And that is precisely where our journey together will take us next. And so, we come to the end of this first part of our journey. We started with the cryptic words of a blind mystic from a century ago, and we traveled through the very real and complex challenges of our time, from our shaky economy to the deep divisions in our world. We have journeyed together through the analysis of an ancient prophecy and its echoes in our modern world. Vanga's warning, whether right or wrong, has served an important purpose. It has forced us to pause and look honestly at the challenges we face. It has reminded us that the great forces of history are not just abstract concepts, they are the lived realities that shape our lives, and that the most critical factor in how we navigate them is, and always will be, the human heart. Before we move into our second part to seek that inner peace, I would love to hear from you. Amidst the endless streams of information and the worries of life, where do you find your spiritual anchor? How do you maintain a sense of calm and hope? Please share your reflections in the comments below. Every story shared is another candle lit in the darkness. Daily prayer for guidance, Aya, from prophecy to inner peace. If the first part of our conversation left you feeling a bit heavy or a little uneasy, please know that is a perfectly natural human response. In fact, it means you were listening with an open heart. Our minds are wired, from ancient times, to be on high alert for danger. When we hear stories of crisis, instability, or uncertainty, a very old part of our brain wakes up, ready to either fight the threat or run from it. It's that familiar fight or flight instinct. It's what kept our ancestors safe from predators, and it's still very much a part of us today. But these modern challenges we've discussed: a volatile economy, global tensions, they are not a tiger in the bushes. We cannot fight them with our fists, nor can we run away from them. Reacting with that primal sense of alarm, day after day, only leads to exhaustion and a feeling of powerlessness. And this is where we make our pivot. This is where we bridge the gap from prophecy to peace. The first part showed us a map of the potential storms. This second part will help us build the inner compass to navigate them. Because the answer to external chaos is not found in predicting the future, but in cultivating stability in the present. So, let's do just that. Let's, together, take a quiet breath and gently turn our attention inward. Let's begin the work of building that inner compass. The nature of guidance beyond religion. For some, the word prayer brings immediate comfort. It's a familiar practice, a direct line to God, a source of profound strength and solace. For others, that same word might feel distant, or perhaps even exclusive, tied to a specific religious tradition they may not be a part of. So, I want to take a moment to broaden our understanding of what it truly means to seek guidance. Let's look beyond any single definition and touch upon the universal human impulse that this practice represents. At its core, seeking guidance is an act of humility. It's the recognition that our everyday, busy minds, the ones constantly worrying about bills, schedules, and the news, don't have all the answers. It's the acknowledgement that there is a deeper wisdom available to us, if only we can learn how to access it. Whether you call that wisdom God, the universe, your higher self, or simply your own deepest intuition, the act of reaching for it is what matters. For thousands of years, across every culture on Earth, humanity has developed practices for this very purpose. The ancient Roman Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, would start their days with philosophical meditation, preparing their minds for the challenges ahead, aligning their thoughts with virtue and reason. In the quiet halls of Zen monasteries, Buddhist monks practice zazen, a form of silent meditation, not to ask for anything, but simply to quiet the mind enough to see reality clearly. In every tradition, there is a version of this, a deliberate pause, a conscious turning away from the noise of the world to listen to a quieter, more truthful signal. Modern science has even begun to catch up with this ancient wisdom. Numerous studies have shown the tangible benefits of practices like meditation and prayer. Neurologists can now watch on brain scans as these activities calm the amygdala, the brain's fear center. Psychologists have documented how a regular practice of mindfulness can reduce stress, improve focus, and even increase our capacity for compassion. So, whether you approach it from a place of faith or from a place of secular science, the conclusion is the same. Consciously quieting the mind is good for the human spirit. Guidance does not necessarily come as a booming voice from the heavens. More often than not, it is the quiet whisper of your own inner knowing, the voice that can only be heard when you finally stop the frantic chatter of the world. A prayer, in its broadest and most universal sense, is simply the act of listening for that voice. It's about asking different kinds of questions. The noisy, anxious mind asks, "What's going to happen? How will I survive?" It's a mind focused on fear and external events. The quiet, centered mind asks, "What is the right thing to do right now? How can I act with courage and kindness, regardless of what happens?" It's a mind focused on character and internal response. Seeking guidance is the process of shifting from the first set of questions to the second. Think of it like a ship's captain. A captain cannot control the ocean. He cannot stop the storms from coming, nor can he calm the waves. To spend his energy trying to do so would be futile. What the captain can control is the rudder of his own ship. He can check his compass, study his charts, and steer his vessel with skill and a steady hand, navigating the storm as best he can. Our daily lives are the ocean, the news, the economy, the state of the world. These are the storms and the waves. We cannot control them. Our inner state, our thoughts, our intentions, our responses, that is the rudder of our ship. The practice of seeking guidance, of daily prayer or meditation, is our way of checking the compass. It's the moment we take each morning to ensure our rudder is pointed toward the harbor of our own deepest values, toward peace, toward kindness, toward courage, before we set sail into the unpredictable waters of the day. So, as we move forward, I invite you to hold this broad, inclusive understanding. It doesn't matter what you call it, or who you direct your thoughts to. What matters is the act itself. The deliberate, humble, and courageous act of pausing, looking inward, and asking for the strength and wisdom to be the person you truly want to be. The daily prayer for guidance. And so now, with that understanding in our hearts, I would like to share a moment of reflection with you, a prayer. You can listen, you can repeat the words silently in your mind, or you can simply allow the sentiment behind them to wash over you. This is not the prayer of any one specific religion, but the prayer of a human heart, searching for light in a complicated world. If you are able, find a comfortable position. Allow your shoulders to drop, releasing a tension you may not have even realized you were holding. Let the sounds of the room around you fade into the background, and just be present, right here, right now. Let us begin by first addressing that which is greater than ourselves, in whatever way feels true to you. Oh, divine source of all that is, whatever name I may call you, Creator, God, the universe, the Great Spirit, the quiet light within. I open my heart to your presence. I acknowledge a wisdom deeper than my own, and I ask only to be guided. Now, let us ask for the gift of clarity. In a world of overwhelming noise, clarity is our sanctuary. In the midst of a world filled with the endless noise of opinion and the constant loud voices of fear, please grant me the ability to find the stillness within my own soul. Help me create a quiet space inside myself, a place of refuge that I can return to, no matter the storm outside. In that quiet space, grant me the clarity to distinguish between the truth and the echo of my own anxiety. Help me to see the difference between what is and the story my fear is telling me about what island. And above all, grant me the profound wisdom to know what is mine to control and the deep, abiding grace to release what is not. Next, let us ask for the gift of strength, not the strength of aggression, but the strength of resilience, the strength of a deep-rooted tree. Grant me the strength not to be swept away by the powerful currents of collective panic. When the winds of fear blow, help me to bend, but not to break. Allow me to become an anchor of peace, a quiet and steady presence for my family, my friends, and my community. Let my own calmness be a silent offering to others, a reminder that peace is possible even now. Let us now ask for the gift of an open heart, for it is our heart that connects us, and it is in connection that we find our true safety. Grant me the compassion to see the spark of the divine, the common humanity, in everyone, especially in those with whom I disagree and those I do not understand. Soften the edges of my certainty, that I may listen more than I speak. Quiet my need to be right, so that I may truly seek to understand. Let every interaction be an opportunity to build a bridge, not a wall. And finally, let us ask for the gift of simple courage. The courage to live out these intentions, not in grand gestures, but in the small moments of our daily lives. Grant me the courage to act with simple kindness in all that I do, a kindness that expects nothing in return. Guide my thoughts before they become words, guide my words before they become actions, guide my actions that they may plant seeds of hope where there is despair, of connection where there is division. May I be a quiet instrument of your peace, in my own small way, in this small corner of the world. Today, Amen. From prayer to practice, 3 vital lessons for the modern world. That quiet space we just shared, that is our foundation. But a prayer is not meant to be an escape from the world. It is meant to be the preparation for engaging with the world more wisely. It's the act of tuning an instrument before you play the music. The prayer is the tuning. Our daily life is the music. So, how do we translate that beautiful internal sentiment into real, practical action? How do we live out the spirit of that prayer in a world that constantly pulls us in the opposite direction? I believe it comes down to practicing 3 vital lessons. Think of them as 3 core disciplines for living a sane and meaningful life in an often insane world. The first is about how we manage our minds. The second is about how we engage our hearts. And the third is about how we guide our hands. The first lesson: building an information immune system. In our prayer, we asked for clarity and the ability to distinguish truth from anxiety. This is perhaps the single most challenging spiritual task of our time. We are the first generation in history to be subjected to a constant 24-hour-a-day fire hose of information, opinion, and outrage, all delivered through a screen that is almost always within arm's reach. Our minds were not designed for this. Just as our bodies have an immune system to fight off physical viruses, we must now consciously build an information immune system to protect our mental and emotional health. An untrained mind in this environment is like an open wound in a contaminated river. It will inevitably become infected with fear, anxiety, and division. Building this system isn't about ignoring the world, it's about engaging with it on your own terms. It begins with shifting from being a passive consumer of information to being a conscious and intentional steward of your own attention. Your attention is your most precious resource. Do not give it away cheaply. The first practical step is to create boundaries. The news cycle is designed to be infinite. You could scroll forever and never reach the end. So, you must create your own end. Try this. Designate specific, limited times for checking the news. Perhaps 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. That's it. Outside of those windows, the news is turned off. This simple act alone is revolutionary. It stops the constant drip of anxiety and allows your nervous system to actually rest and recover. It lets you be present in your own life, rather than being a perpetual, anxious bystander to every crisis on the planet. The second step is to become a discerning consumer. Unfollow or mute the sources, whether they are TV channels, websites, or people on social media that consistently make you feel angry, fearful, or hopeless. Their business model is often based on hijacking your fight or flight response. Don't let them. Instead, actively seek out sources that are known for their sobriety, their depth, and their commitment to facts over outrage. And as you consume, practice asking a crucial question: is this information or is this a narrative? Information is what happened. The stock market went down 200 points. A narrative is the story someone tells about what happened. The stock market plummeted today as fears of an imminent collapse gripped the nation. One is a fact. The other is an interpretation designed to provoke an emotional reaction. Learning to spot the difference is a superpower. Finally, and this may be the most important step, you must schedule regular periods of information fasting. This means deliberately unplugging. It could be for 1 hour every evening. It could be for all of Sunday. During this time, there are no screens, no news, no scrolling. There is only the real world. A walk in nature, a conversation with a loved one, a hobby you enjoy, or simply quiet time with your own thoughts. It is in these periods of quiet that your mind actually processes what it has taken in. It's where information can settle into wisdom. Without these moments of rest, we don't digest our experiences. We just accumulate them, leading to a kind of mental and spiritual indigestion. Building this immune system is not an act of ignorance. It is an act of profound self-respect. It is how we honor our prayer for clarity. It is how we create the mental space necessary to even begin to live a life of purpose and peace. The second lesson, the power of the proximate circle. In our prayer, we asked for the strength to be an anchor of peace and the compassion to connect with others. This can feel like an impossible task when we look at the scale of global problems. The sheer size of the world's suffering can paralyze us, making us feel small and insignificant. This feeling of helplessness is a major source of modern anxiety. The antidote to this is to consciously shift our focus from the global to the local, from the abstract to the tangible. The lesson here is to invest your primary energy into your proximate circle. This is your world, the one you can actually touch and influence. Your family, your friends, your neighbors, and your local community. In our hyper-connected age, we've been tricked into believing that our primary community is online. We have hundreds of friends we've never met and argue with strangers 1,000 miles away. But this is a fragile digital web. A true community is built on physical presence, shared experience, and mutual support. When the power goes out, it's not your online followers who will bring you a flashlight. It will be your next-door neighbor. When the world feels chaotic, a strong local community is the safest harbor their island, and we don't have to wait for a crisis to build it. We can start right now with simple, intentional actions. This is about reclaiming the lost art of neighboring. It's about learning the names of the people who live on your street. It's about taking that extra moment at the mailbox to ask how they're really doing. It's about organizing a simple block party or a potluck. These small acts of connection are the threads that weave a strong social fabric. It's about nurturing your most important relationships. In a world that pulls for our attention, the most radical act can be to put down your phone, look someone you love in the eye, and give them 5 minutes of your undivided, non-judgmental attention. Make that phone call to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Send that handwritten card. Show up. In the end, it is the quality of these close relationships that will determine the quality of our lives far more than any global event. And it's about supporting your local ecosystem. Shop at the farmer's market, eat at the family-owned restaurant, volunteer for a local charity. When you invest your time and money into your local community, you are building a more resilient, self-sufficient, and connected world right outside your own front door. You are creating the very safety and stability you wish to see on a global scale, but in a way that you can actually control. Feeling powerless is a choice. The moment you decide to focus your compassionate energy on the people and places within your reach, that feeling begins to dissolve. You realize you are not a helpless spectator to world events. You are an active, vital co-creator of your own community. This is how we live out our prayer for connection. It's how we become the anchor of peace we ask to be. The third lesson, the human choice. To rebuild or to break apart. In our prayer, we asked for the courage to act with kindness and to plant seeds of hope. This brings us to the most profound lesson, the one that ties everything together. If you remember, Baba Vanga's prophecy didn't just end with a warning of chaos. It ended with a vision of a choice. From this darkness, she is said to have seen, the world will choose its road to rebuild or to break apart forever. For a long time, I thought this meant some grand, collective choice, a decision made by world leaders at a global summit. But I've come to believe it's something much more personal and much more powerful. That choice is not one single event. It is the sum total of billions of individual choices made by people like you and me every single day. The choice to rebuild or break apart happens in 1,000 small moments. It happens when someone cuts you off in traffic and you have to choose between laying on the horn in anger or taking a deep breath and letting it go. It happens when you read a comment online that infuriates you and you have to choose between writing a scathing reply or simply closing the window and preserving your peace. It happens when a family member says something you fundamentally disagree with, and you have to choose between turning it into a battle or trying to find the common ground of your shared love. In each of these moments, we are casting a vote. We are either adding a little more anger, division, and chaos into the world, helping it break apart, or we are adding a little more patience, understanding, and compassion, helping it rebuild. This is the great, eternal struggle within human nature, playing out inside each of us. It is the battle between our fear and our love. Our fear-based self is our survival instinct. It's ego-driven, defensive, and quick to judge. It sees the world in terms of us versus them. It hoards resources, builds walls, and sees threats everywhere. This is the part of us that helps society break apart. Our love-based self is our higher nature. It's compassionate, connective, and generous. It seeks to understand rather than to be right. It sees the shared humanity in everyone. It shares resources, builds bridges, and sees opportunities for connection everywhere. This is the part of us that helps the world rebuild. Living a spiritual life, a guided life, is simply the daily practice of choosing, again and again, to act from our love-based self instead of our fear-based self. It's not about being perfect. We will all fail every day. It's about the intention. It's about catching yourself when you're acting from fear and gently, without judgment, choosing a different path. So, The courage we prayed for is not the courage of a soldier on a battlefield. It is a quieter, deeper courage. It is the courage to be kind in a world that is often unkind. It is the courage to be calm when everyone else is panicking. It is the courage to be a source of unity when division is the easy path. Every time you make that choice, you are doing more than just managing your own emotions. You are casting a powerful vote for the kind of world you want to live in. You are planting a seed of hope. And you are, in your own small but incredibly meaningful way, answering the great question of our time. Conclusion: your candle in the storm. We have traveled a long way together on this journey. We began with the unsettling shadow of an ancient prophecy, a vision of a world teetering on the edge of chaos. We walked through the very real anxieties of our time, acknowledging the fragility that we all feel. But we did not stay in that shadow. From there, we turned inward. We sought a quiet space, a sanctuary of the soul, and we reached for a guidance that lies deeper than the daily noise. We then took the light from that quiet space and carried it back out into the world, transforming it into 3 practical lessons: the discipline to guard our minds, the compassion to connect our hearts, and the courage to guide our hands. We come back then to the prophecy that started it all. Baba Vanga's prediction for 2025 may come to pass, or it may fade into history as another failed forecast. In the end, that is not what truly matters, because the lesson the prophecy offers us is always true. The future is not something we passively wait for. It is something we actively create together. It is built not by the grand pronouncements of leaders, but by the accumulated weight of billions of small, conscious choices made by ordinary people every single day. In a world that can often feel dark and overwhelming, it is easy to believe that our small efforts don't matter. It is easy to feel that our individual light is too dim to make a difference in such a great storm. But that is a profound misunderstanding of how light works. A single candle lit in a vast, dark cavern does not fill the entire space. But it does create a small, unwavering circle of light right where it island. It provides enough light to see the path immediately ahead. It provides enough warmth to comfort those who are gathered close. And it provides a beacon that can be seen by others from a great distance, reminding them that they are not alone. Lessons and actions, HA, bringing the sanctuary into the arena. In our last section, we found a quiet place together, a place of inner peace, of connection to something greater, a place of spiritual grounding. If you took a moment to sit with that prayer, you may have felt a sense of calm, a feeling of being centered, and that feeling is both beautiful and essential. But it is not the final destination. That inner peace is not a fortress to hide in, escaping from the troubles of the world. It is a training ground. It is the sanctuary where we gather our strength, clarify our purpose, and prepare ourselves for the real work ahead. Psychologists have a term for what can happen after people go through difficult times. They call it post-traumatic growth. It's the remarkable human ability not just to survive adversity, but to become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of it. The journey we've taken looking honestly at our fears in the first part, and cultivating our inner strength in the second, is the very blueprint for that kind of growth. In part 2, we built a sanctuary of peace in our souls. Now, the most important question is, how do we carry the strength of that sanctuary into the noisy arena of everyday life? Because true faith, true spiritual practice, is not measured by the sincerity of our prayers, but by the integrity of our actions when we are faced with a challenge. So, let us now step out from the quiet of the sanctuary and walk together into that arena, not with fear, but with a newfound strength, ready to put our deepest values into practice. The 3 pillars of resilient living. To live with strength and grace in these times, we don't need a complicated instruction manual. We need a simple, sturdy framework to lean on. I believe that framework rests on three pillars, three core areas of our lives that we can consciously cultivate. The first is the pillar of clarity, which is about mastering our mind. The second is the pillar of connection, about nurturing our heart. And the third is the pillar of purpose, about guiding our hands. Let's begin with the first pillar, because it is the foundation for everything else. The pillar of clarity, mastering the mind. In a world overflowing with information, the greatest freedom is a calm and clear mind. The ancient Stoics taught a powerful lesson. Focus only on what you can control: your thoughts, your choices, your responses, and accept what you cannot. This is the secret to inner peace. To practice this today, we can adopt what I call the 3C information diet: consume, contemplate, and contribute. First, consume with intention. Stop grazing on a junk food diet of endless outrage and trivial content. Instead, become a gourmet. Set firm boundaries, like a 15-minute news window in the morning and evening. Outside that time, you are off-duty, living your own life. This simple act starves anxiety and feeds your peace. Second, contemplate before you react. Our world has lost the sacred pause. Create it for yourself. After you consume information, take 5 minutes of silence. Ask, how does this make me feel? Is this mine to control? A powerful tool for this is a private journal. Writing slows down your reactivity and untangles your emotions from the facts, allowing wisdom to surface. Finally, contribute only from that place of clarity. Before you speak or post, ask yourself, will this add light or just more heat? Often, the wisest contribution is thoughtful silence. But if you do speak, let it be to build a bridge, not dig a trench. This 3C practice is not about ignorance. It is the disciplined art of mastering your own mind, allowing you to stand steady, no matter how strong the winds of chaos may blow. The pillar of connection, nurturing the heart. Clarity of mind is essential, but it is in the heart that we find our resilience. In an age of digital networks, we are starving for true community. A network is for utility. A community is for support. A network is measured in quantity. A community is measured in quality. In times of trouble, it is the strength of our community, not the size of our network, that will see us through. This pillar is about consciously nurturing your proximate circle, the people you can actually touch, your family, your friends, your neighbors. This work is quiet, offline, and profoundly powerful. It begins with the lost art of deep listening. Try this practice. Once a day, give someone 5 minutes of your undivided, non-judgmental attention. Don't plan your reply. Don't check your phone. Just listen. It is one of the greatest gifts you can give. From this listening, we can practice radical empathy, the sincere effort to understand the world from another's perspective, especially someone you disagree with. For our generation, the 4, 5 and over crowd, this is our vital role. We are the bridge builders, the elders of a fractured society. We have the life experience to listen past the anger and hear the fear or pain beneath it. The actions here are simple, but not easy. Make that phone call to an old friend. Introduce yourself to your new neighbor. Offer to mentor a younger person who is struggling to find their way. Organize a simple potluck on your street. Each of these small acts weaves the fabric of a true community. When the world feels unstable, these connections are our safest harbor. This is how we become the anchor of peace we prayed to be. The pillar of purpose, acting with the hands. A clear mind and a connected heart give us our foundation, but it is through our hands, through our actions, that we bring our purpose to life. Many of us feel a sense of powerlessness when faced with global problems. The secret to overcoming this is to redefine purpose. Purpose is not one grand heroic act. Purpose is the accumulation of small daily acts of service. This is the power of the ripple effect. Every single action you take, no matter how small, sends ripples out into the world. A harsh word creates ripples of tension. A kind act creates ripples of warmth. You cannot control the whole ocean, but you absolutely can control the ripples you make. This is the source of our true power. To practice this, start each morning by defining your micro-contribution for the day. This is one small, concrete action you will take to leave your small corner of the world a little better than you found it. Your micro-contribution could be anything. It could be picking up a piece of trash on your morning walk. It could be writing a one-sentence email to a colleague, thanking them for their help. It could be donating a can of food to the local food bank. It could be as simple as making eye contact and smiling genuinely at the cashier who looks tired. These are not insignificant acts. They are everything. They are how we vote for the kind of world we want to live in, not with our opinions, but with our actions. They are the antidote to despair. You cannot solve world hunger, but you can donate that can of soup. You cannot create world peace, but you can refuse to engage in a pointless argument online. By focusing on your micro-contribution, you are taking your power back from the abstract and grounding it in the real, tangible world. This is how we live our prayer, one small, meaningful action at a time. Forging a legacy of light, a message to the generations. We have talked about mastering our minds, nurturing our hearts, and guiding our hands. And these practices are vital, not just for our own peace, but for something far greater. They are the building blocks of the legacy we will leave behind. For many of us listening, we are parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. We are the elders of our families and our communities. And we have a sacred responsibility to the generations that are looking to us for cues on how to navigate this world. They are watching us, not just listening to our words, but watching our actions, feeling our energy. We often think of our legacy in terms of the money or property we will leave behind, but the real inheritance, the one that truly shapes a life, is invisible. It is the inheritance of our values, our resilience, our character. It is the memory of how we lived, not just what we owned. In a world that feels unstable and uncertain, the greatest gift we can give to our children and grandchildren is the gift of our own stability. To be the calm anchor in their storm, to be the steady hand when they are trembling, to be the quiet voice of wisdom and reassurance when the world outside is shouting in fear. This is perhaps our most profound purpose in this chapter of our lives. When our children and grandchildren look back on this time, years from now, they will not remember the specific headlines that worried us. They will not recall the daily fluctuations of the stock market or the political squabbles of the day. They will remember how we handled the hardship. They will remember the calm in our voice when things were uncertain. They will remember the integrity in our actions when it would have been easier to compromise. And they will remember the warmth of our embrace, a safe harbor that told them, no matter what, that they were loved and that everything would ultimately be okay. That is the legacy of light. That is the inheritance that can never be lost or broke. We have traveled a long way together, from facing the shadow of a prophecy to finding the light of a prayer, and finally, to learning how to become a torch ourselves through our daily actions. These three pillars, clarity of mind, connection of heart, and purpose in our hands, are not a checklist to be completed and then forgotten. They are a way of being, a quiet practice to return to day after day. It is a journey, not a destination. This journey requires patience, and it requires presence. And before I say my final words, I have a small request. If you are still listening to my voice at this moment, Please do me the kindness of commenting, "I'm still here listening" below. It will let me know that there are fellow travelers who have walked this entire path with me. Your presence is the greatest encouragement to continue these conversations. It means more than you know. Thank you.